Welcome back for a new episode of Collider Movie Talk, where we are covering Spider-Man Far From Home's box office, a record that it already broke. And then on top of that, Disney has officially cast The Little Mermaid. The title role, Ariel, it went to someone. We know who it is. We're excited about it. We're excited to share that news with you right now as the cast for that highly anticipated movie gets rounded out this week. It's so exciting. And I get to talk about that today with Jay Washington and Eric Eisenberg.
Hey.
What's up? I didn't get the hat memo.
I think you never get the hat memo.
No, I don't. And I always love an excuse to wear a hat so I don't have to do my hair.
You never just have it on. Like, damn it, I should have wore a hat.
As we all well know, these bangs need a trim right now. It's not okay.
I'm going to bring an extra hat every time I'm on Movie Talk.
You always have me covered.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
All right, ready to jump into some box office? We're going to do some box office analysis and also some predictions with this story. So, Spider-Man Far From Home comes out this weekend. Actually, it already came out on Tuesday, and we've got reports saying that it debuted in 4,600 theaters and wound up making $39.2 million on Tuesday. Now, that means it topped The Amazing Spider-Man, which held the record for top single day for a Tuesday opening. That one held that record with $35 million, and it also beat the record held by Star Wars The Force Awakens, which had the title top single day gross for Tuesday. So one is gross for Tuesday, one is an opening for Tuesday. For Force Awakens, it was $37.4 million. Now, both of those records belong to Far From Home. You guys hear that? Is an opening on Tuesday that strong a surprise to you? And does it change what you think is going to happen for the rest of the holiday run?
Well, it's an interesting thing just because I feel like this year, the July 4th holiday is kind of on the perfect day because it sucks when it's on like a Friday or Saturday or Sunday or even a Sunday when you're taking away attention from movies by people going to fireworks. And instead you have now an extended weekend where people can go see movies freely. And so you now have you have a lot of time for audiences to go see this movie. And also we are just at a point, especially after Endgame, where there is a lot of excitement for the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. There's a lot of excitement for what Spider-Man is up to. And I think that is just all fueling a really big box office response.
Yeah, you knew it. When you found out the 4th of July was on a Thursday, you're not going to drop it on a Thursday. You're damn sure not going to drop it on a Wednesday. Movies have a history of being dropped on a Tuesday that make money. And again, coming off of Endgame, with the re-release of Endgame, with the extra footage, you're going right into that. So this was all smart. You knew it was going. You didn't think it would make the record or whatnot, but you knew it was going to make good money on its opening night. And now it has an entire week to make a box office number that it's kind of hard to predict because we normally can go 4 days, but it's like 5, 6.
Do I dare ask you guys, do you have a prediction either for the 6-day run or just for the regular 3-day weekend?
Well, I saw prognostications say something like in the realm of 125, which seems kind of
so
low.
I think that's actually the Sony projection. Which it seems to me like they might be doing that just so when it comes in way higher,
everybody's excited.
But I mean, honestly, just part of it is just like a look at Captain Marvel's opening, the 3-day opening earlier this year, and that was 154 million, which was insane. Like that was a lot of money and kind of again broke expectations.
And the movie leading into Endgame.
Right.
This is the movie afterwards.
Yeah.
Everybody again, you got to keep going back to this re-release because that's all that and the break the Avatar record was all it was for. You just roll right on into it. And so I think I'd say we got almost 40. Let's call it 40 million. 40 million on a Tuesday. Some people may go tomorrow morning, which is the 4th of July morning before the fireworks. Then you have that weekend. I'd give it about 140, 150.
For 6 days?
For 6 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm actually coming in way above that. And I think it's because of this record-breaking Tuesday release. I was thinking something more along the lines of 180, 185, which is very, very high. And, it feels a little bit like a crapshoot because, again, it's a holiday. And yes, it had this really big opening on Tuesday, but like you were kind of just hinting at right now, Jay, it's like, what do people even do on, let's say, a Wednesday when you're traveling to get to wherever you have to go? We have to factor in weather. Could weather be an issue in a big city across the country somewhere? There's just so many things in play right now. And there is also the chance, just in case the 3-day weekend comes in and it looks like a lower number in comparison to, let's say, a Captain Marvel or something like that, it's because it could be front-loaded. It just had a huge, huge Tuesday. So that 3-day, it's not a comparable number to any other typical 3-day weekend.
At the end of the day, Sony just wants an over total about 150 million no matter what. They just want to say, like you said, Sony's projection is 125. They get 150. They're like, well, we're already in production on Spider-Man 3, which we already know is happening because he's contracted to do one more.
Right.
But they'll let you know it's happening.
All right, just to lock in some numbers quickly here, though, Steve Calderon in live chat is saying Spider-Man Homecoming made $154 million in the first 6 days. Can Far From Home top that? I go yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is honestly like when Spider-Man Homecoming first came out, people like we were still a few years removed from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. It like we got to meet him in Civil War, but it was this really small role. At this point, we are now like we have had Tom Holland's Spider-Man on the big screen every year since 2016.
I was reading some reports, and I don't agree with this at all. I was reading some reports because you could take it one way. It's like even the Endgame thing. You could look at it one way or the other. Has Endgame sucked so much money out of the 2019 box office that there just isn't that much to go around, or is the Endgame storyline going to give this a boost? And it's a similar thing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, at least. Have we been oversaturated with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, or are we all just such big fans that it's going to help?
I think it's that.
But let's go to Infinity. You could say the same thing about Infinity War. Because Infinity War made a killing at the box office, and everybody was like, oh, so what's going to happen? Ant-Man and the Wasp, no matter how it was received, it still made money its opening weekend because it was the follow-up from Infinity War. So I don't think there's a lag. People love Tom Holland. There's an argument that he is the best Spider-Man right now. You know, some people will still go Tobey Maguire, but I'm like, watch Spider-Man 3 again. And nobody's really saying it. People will say Andrew Garfield's a good Spider-Man, horrible Peter Parker. Yeah. But they're saying, everybody as a whole agrees Tom Holland is the total package of this. And so I don't think you can get tired of that. You enjoy what he brings to this.
I will also just add to the mix in the same way that people really wanted to see how Endgame turned out, like for themselves. He had the whole "Don't Spoil the Endgame" campaign. There are a lot of surprises in Far From Home. Particularly, a lot of people are talking about the end credit sequences, which do legitimately pack a wallop. Not going to spoil them here, but people are going to want to go see that in theaters for themselves, as opposed to like risking going on Twitter and seeing it just pop up on their feed accidentally.
Well, funny you should bring that up. If anybody does want that kind of content spoiled for them, we're going to have a whole ton of spoiler content. I believe Spoiler Talk for Spider-Man Far From Home is already live on the channel, so you could check that out if you've seen the movie. I do want to bring up one other point, because it does seem like this summer in particular, with every single new big release we're getting, this is what the conversation is revolving around. How many movies we have, how many reboots or remakes or sequels we're getting, and what that could be doing to the landscape. And I was reading a piece on Variety, and they had one sentence in there that it kind of gave me like bad chills a little bit. They wrote, "Only Disney has reaped big profits while its rivals falter. The studio has fielded the 4 biggest movies of the year so far and controls nearly 40% of the stateside market share." What do you make of this statement? And I guess, does that mean it's going to help Far From Home?
Tell the other studios to step up, these other bigger studios. Warner Brothers can put money behind a project just as much as Disney can. Now, granted, I'm not going to say the film itself, but when it comes to the marketing and the push, they can do that. They don't. Disney makes sure, no matter what, we get all these movies in front of us consistently. We're constantly bombarded by advertisements on it, whether it be the radio, television, social media. You're constantly hitting it, so you're like, okay, I'm going to go see this, if you weren't sure or not.
It doesn't entirely feel fair to say to everybody else, step up your game, because there are other studios that released really solid films. And because and I'm not taking away anything from Endgame, because again, my favorite movie of the year, I think it deserved to make all the money that it did. But all that, there's only so much to go around, and so much of that went to Endgame that it doesn't give certain other films the opportunity that they would have had otherwise. But we do have a situation where so many of the other studios are giving us, let's say, a Men in Black, or even, you could loop in Godzilla, where that franchise seems to have fizzled out.
Well, I was actually going to say that, I think quality might have something to do with it on a certain level, simply because, this year has not been great.
Which is
Men in Black International was supposed to be
so encouraging.
Men in Black International was put up so high to when it came out, everybody was like, "Are you serious?"
It's probably also worth noting that Spider-Man Far From Home is a Sony release. Let's not forget that.
Right.
This is not a Disney film. Yes, Marvel has a creative hand in what happens in this movie, but it's the Sony distribution that's behind it, and they're making the box office money.
Yeah, but that's still having the Marvel juggernaut behind you pushing it.
It is. But technically, when we're talking about these stats,
I get exactly what you're saying.
elsewhere.
It absolutely goes. Sony did this, and Sony did this with Homecoming. Sony's going to do this with the Spider-Man 3rd movie. We get that, but I'm not trying to downplay the other films. It's the production companies. There are some studios that can do it. A Paramount can do it. A Warner Brothers can do it. A Sony can do it, as we see. A Fox could, but Fox is now owned by Disney, so that's a whole different ballgame. You know, but when it comes to the promotion and the marketing of a film, that's the biggest thing. We're not talking about having $300 million films keep coming out, because every film is not going to be that. Again, Men in Black International, what was the budget for that? Like one something, if not a little bit higher.
It was significant.
It was significant to not even really, everybody's like, oh, this was a flop. This is not what I expected. Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Oh my God, we get Godzilla back on the screen. It's been so long. It comes out, everybody sees him, was like, oh, well, that was it.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, like, it kind of makes John Wick look all that much more impressive because, I mean, that's a franchise that a couple of years ago you would have never banked on just because of our current climate, the way that, like, we really feed established brands, which of course is a huge part of this entire conversation. But yeah, now John Wick 3 is coming out and making more than any movie in the previous series. So yeah, it's credit to them.
The thought of quality being rewarded across the board is very encouraging. So as long as that continues to happen, because I think that was another point that this Variety article kept making, is they had quotes from individuals in the industry that kept saying, you know, like, people are smart. Moviegoers are smart. They know that they want to spend their hard-earned dollars on something that's worthwhile. So, hey, if you make something that's worthwhile, hopefully that is a very good sign. You will get people to see your movie.
I just think that won't apply to Hobbs and Shaw, because everybody just want to see stuff blow up.
I'm dying to see that one.
But I'm just saying, people want to see it just because of The Rock and Jason Statham. You know, you're like, they could sit there and be playing tiddlywinks with each other.
There is nothing wrong with that, and I do have very high hopes that they're going to make do on the expectations that cast sets. All right, guys, we're not leaving Spider-Man Far From Home just yet, because we need to remind you that comic book shopping is up and running, and Jake Gyllenhaal was on the show, so check it out right now.
Here for comic book shopping, our first ever international episode, and I'm here with Mysterio himself, Jake Gyllenhaal.
What's going on? It's just the beginning of the absurd things I've done in my career. We can fly out of this scene. Cosmic energy flavor.
Cosmic energy flavor.
Love it.
So we're here at Orbital Comics. We are very far from home, and we're here to promote Spider-Man Far From Home. Are you ready to do some comic book shopping?
Totally.
Let's get some comics.
All right.
So in addition to that, we do have Movie Talk coming your way tomorrow. It's a pre-recorded episode. It's a really cool topic that I can't wait for you guys to check out. And then on Friday, there is no Movie Talk, but in its place, we did a very special episode of For Your Consideration. It's our mid-year special. So if you want to know the movies that have come out so far in 2019 that could be up for Oscars come the end of the year, you can check out that discussion right here on the channel, 3 p.m. PT on Friday. So don't miss that one. All right, story number 2. Big casting news today, especially after we've covered this a couple of times this year. THR is reporting, and I believe Disney has confirmed, that singer Halle Bailey, I need to take and not say Halle Berry, which is apparently an issue many people suffer, has been selected as Ariel for the live-action remake of Little Mermaid. Bailey is best known as one half of the singing duo known as Chloe and Halle. And this will be her first major acting role, having previously played a supporting part on the Freeform series Grownish. Filming on The Little Mermaid is expected to begin in early 2020. So other than very briefly thinking that Halle Berry was the new Ariel in Little Mermaid, what did you guys make of this news when you first heard it?
I was like, yes, let's do this. She has the voice to sing the songs. She's a great actress. You don't get much of her in Grownish, but to have her be at the forefront of this, all I need is either Keith David, Mahershala Ali, or Danny Glover to be Triton, and I'm happy.
That's good stuff. No, I agree with you that, like, the music is just such a huge part of it. So getting an actual singer is that's a huge, big deal. And I have seen a few episodes of Grownish, and she especially has great just kind of tete-a-tete with her sister, which I guess we won't see in this one, but to see her try something on her own is exciting by itself. So,
yeah, I was so hyped to hear this, especially because ever since we heard about the Melissa McCarthy thing, it has just made the most sense to me to have, not just Melissa McCarthy, but for the sake of a conversation right now, like Melissa McCarthy is your headliner, and then give this opportunity to someone who doesn't have that super wide audience, that A-lister weight to swing around, but someone who's super talented and deserving of the role. Because really, the only thing that I want in this role whatsoever is someone who could deliver a good performance and can sing, because that's key. And it seems like they ticked both boxes and maybe then some, because again, this is a big investment for Disney. These live action remakes are very, very important to them. They do not take this casting lightly. And if this is who they settled on, I believe it's the right choice.
They've had to hear her sing in person. And not just listen to, like YouTube things. They had to hear her sing in person just to have that feel, if it gives them the emotions. They had to have her sing the actual songs from one or two of the songs from the movie for them to say, this is our Ariel. Because again, like you said, it needs somebody to be in the forefront. If not, if you didn't have anybody that you were like, I don't know if we should put him as Ariel, let's see what happens, then this movie becomes about Melissa McCarthy. Let's just keep it real. It becomes about Melissa McCarthy. And it's not about Ursula. It's about the Little Mermaid, who is Ariel.
Yeah. And actually, you made the point about these movies being so important to Disney right now. Especially there is that core four early 90s, which is Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, and Little Mermaid. These are the four that kind of really brought back the studio.
Makes me such a 90s child.
Well, yes, that's what we are. I mean, let's not be ashamed. But the thing is I think there is a particularly special importance that Disney is going to have to put on this film, if not just because obviously, young kids are still growing up with the animated versions, but there's also audiences of our age which have that nostalgia factor and look back on these movies. And a huge part of that is obviously the music. That is perfectly ingrained within everything about this. So that's kind of why I think that music first is kind of the way to go with it. And yeah, it seems like they made the right call on that.
Yeah, it seems like they're taking a lot of steps in the right direction. But given all the information we got this week and some of the stuff we knew from previous reports about who's attached to work on this project, whether it is in front of the camera or behind the scenes, is it smooth sailing at this point for this Little Mermaid movie, or is there anybody attached that you're like, not quite sure about them yet?
Well, I mean, the other names that we've heard so far is Awkwafina as the seagull Scuttle and Jacob Tremblay as Flounder, which are both perfect.
You could throw in Melissa McCarthy.
And Melissa McCarthy,
you could
sure,
throw in director Rob Marshall.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
As a producer.
Yes, right, yeah.
And
potentially
everybody's betting that he's going to be
Sebastian.
You're right,
I don't understand why they're hiding that, because I would put everything I have on that being the case.
I think
at this
whenever
point.
they announced the Triton, and I can't remember the sailor name that she falls in love with.
Prince Eric.
Yeah, Prince Eric.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
I take that one personally being named Eric, yes.
But
so, yes,
I think when we get those
yeah.
announcements, we'll probably get all three of those together.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more about the cast. The only individual I am not 100% behind at this point is just Rob Marshall. And I know he's got wonderful films to his name. He has a great track record, especially when it comes to musical movies. It's just, when I think about so many of these big projects, he's such an obvious choice for something like this. And especially, I forget what the words they used in the previous report. It's like contemporary or something, because when you... All right, this is going to sound so contradictory, because when it comes to The Lion King, I'm like, yes, give me all the frames, exactly like my favorite original movie. But I do think there is something to be said for taking every avenue you possibly can to bring these stories back to screen in a different way, where you can also drive people back to the original if they haven't seen them. But do something different, spice it up, take this idea a step forward. And just because Rob Marshall, in my mind, is the safe choice, I'm not saying he can't do a great job with this movie, but there's a little room for me to have gotten more excited about an up-and-comer getting this opportunity.
What you just said is why. Because on one hand, there are a bunch of people who want this frame by frame, no matter what. And there are people who want, give me some of the frames, but give me a different twist. So it's like, how do you please everybody with this? You can't. So you just go.
Haven't you learned anything from the internet?
Well, I mean, honestly, it kind of also interestingly goes back to those four titles that I mentioned, because if you look at the movies that they have made from the animation into live action, Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin are much more committed to bringing the animated movie to life versus, say, Jungle Book, which essentially turned it into Lion King, or even Cinderella, which took away that entire movie is completely different, or Dumbo, where you just completely changed the context of everything. And I think part of that is because, again, that the audience who grew up with those movies, like specifically had those movies playing in theaters, they're not really here now. They're not not anticipating Little Mermaid, or they're just not as present as. So I do feel like Disney is maybe teetering on almost too much nostalgia, pushing for these more modern films, which is an interesting challenge, and I think is an interesting thing about Rob Marshall, particularly after Mary Poppins Returns.
It's just hard to figure out what to do, because if you change it, you have the nostalgia core who's like, well, this isn't the movie I know.
Right.
But if you make it the movie that everybody knows, then you have that fan base again. It's like,
give me something new.
Give me something new. And it's just like, it's
right, you can't
so
please
weird
everybody.
No
yeah,
what.
exactly. Right.
It seems like such a double-edged sword to me. And I don't know, I feel like we're seeing this in other franchises where there's a whole bunch of people out there, and there's nothing wrong with this either, because I'm attached to so much material that I grew up with, like Lion King, and I don't want to see it change, that want just that, stay true to what I already know and love. And then there's a whole bunch of newcomers who already know that exists, and they want something a little spicier, a little more timely. And it is not an easy endeavor to balance the two, and especially with the slate Disney has now, minus, I guess, Avatar, which was an original idea. They're just playing the remake, sequel, cinematic universe game over and over and over again. So
everybody else
good
is,
luck
though.
to them figuring it out and keeping it going.
Yeah, because everybody else is playing that game. Look at how many Child's Play just came out. No matter how people received it, Child's Play came out. Pet Sematary just came out. Halloween 2 is coming out next year. We're playing that game no matter what, so it's might as well jump on the train.
I mean, it is also interesting at the same time, though, you have Walt Disney Animation and Pixar, which are making, with the exception of the sequels, like Toy Story 4, which is just a huge hit, but they are making original stories and creating original worlds, but they also happen to have the brand associated with the, being Pixar and Walt Disney Animation. So, yeah, it's an interesting trend that apparently Disney just wins no matter what. So.
Yeah, I feel like we just put all the weight in Disney's corner.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not to be, first of all, it's not to be shilling for Disney, because that's what the comments are probably saying. It's just the truth of what's happening right now. It's just the truth. They have original properties, but then they have properties that are still original that they owned from way back.
Right,
it's just there's a new generation out here. Let them see it. Yeah. Remember, they used to re-release tapes and DVDs out of the vault, all the time. So.
Oh, I remember the vault and the shell clamshell cases. I still have quite a few of them. All right, we're gonna stick with, I guess, the topic of sequels, remakes, re-releases, whatever you want to call it. For a question in the live chat from Luis E. de la Pena, who's asking, in honor of Jumanji: The Next Level, which video game would you like to be sucked into, and what character would you like to play?
Oh wow!
I like this question.
Put me in The Legend of Zelda, and I want to be Link. Yep, I want to wear the green stuff and everything, and have just the sword and go find Triforces.
I am not a huge video game person, so I feel like I'm totally at a negative potential place with this. But that's the thing. My urge is to say something like Mortal Kombat, but it's no, you don't want to go into Mortal Kombat. Are you crazy? Let's say Pokemon. I'll go with that. Yeah,
that seems like.
But that seems like Well, there you go. Oh, I want a Bulbasaur. So yeah, no,
all
boom,
right.
done.
Now
all right,
so we can both be in the game.
Exactly.
Get a different Pokemon.
Squirtle, though.
There you go. Boom.
Done. I need to get rid of Blastoise.
This is a
it was either
time
that
for
or I was going to pick Ninja Turtles, just because I
good.
love Ninja Turtles. That was my favorite game growing up. All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you to everybody out there for watching, and an extra special thank you to Eric for joining us today. Jay, as always, Thursday. It's not Thursday.
It's not Thursday. No, that's why. I think that's what threw you off. I was I wanted to say something about Thursday originally, but I was like, today is Wednesday, and we are live.
Wednesday. It was nice to have you on a Wednesday. Dorian, thanks for manning the live chat. Adam in the booth back there, you rock. Guys, thank you so much again for watching this episode. Tell everybody you know about us on the YouTube channel in podcast form. And don't forget, tomorrow, 3 p.m., not live, but you will get a brand new episode. We are talking about the new members of the Academy. It's a big deal, and I get to break all that down with Angelique Jackson and Roth Cornet, so don't miss it. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. PT. That's still that. Yeah, just not live. I'll see you then. Go there.